welcome back to another exciting edition of Comic Cave Podcast. My name is Chris, here with my hetero life mate, Mr.
Russ.
Russ, we are here coming to you live from the beautiful southwest side of Houston, Texas, in one of the beautiful stores, one of the biggest stores, one of the biggest comic book seller stores all in Houston, and several locations. And we are joined by the owner of that, Mr.
Richard Evans.
Richard Evans, thank you for joining us, sir. Thank you for having us in your lovely store.
Thank you for
super excited
to be
here.
This will be fun.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us, Comic Cave Podcast. So, Russell, what would you like to start off as?
Man, absolutely. Just jumping right into it. Why a comic book shop? Out of anything to start up, what made you dive? Yeah, we got to go right into it.
I started collecting comics when I was a little kid, and there's some reasons why I opened the store, and I'll tell y'all some stories a little bit later. But basically, I just always knew I wanted to do this. I remember buying Marvel comics off the stands and just was being enamored with them. Mm-hmm. A friend of a kid when I was like third grade, right? And a kid's older brother had a flyer for a HCCA, Houston Comic Convention back in the 70s, and went to one of those, and it was just the coolest thing, and just got sucked into all of this. And I was real fortunate. We had a family friend who had opened a store in town, and I got to work there when I was 15. I worked at a comic shop all through high school.
All right.
And then sold comics to help pay for college when I was in school. I went to UT and
for that shop, or like individual?
No, that was just me after I moved there, and managed stores and worked in stores and moved back here and opened Bedrock in 1990. It was kind of a linear thing. But
were you at any point wanting to be like an artist or a writer or anything like that, or did you
honestly
just know
no?
I
loved collecting comics. I dug the commerce of them.
Uh-huh.
I went to school. I was planning to be a lawyer, but I had an experience with a shop here in town that was not fun. To me, there is nothing about comics that shouldn't be fun. And kind of a light bulb went off for me, and I thought, I can open a store and do what I enjoy doing and hopefully make a living doing it. I don't know, but I figured I can make enough to get the bills paid.
Yeah.
But I love this stuff so much, and I never wanted anybody to ever go in a comic book store and have a crappy experience.
Right.
It's dumb. This is escapist fun, and it should always be fun for everybody. And so that was kind of an impetus. I was real lucky to be in some good places and work for some people. I learned things not to do from a retailing standpoint. And so when we opened the store, we kind of hit the ground running. We got kind of lucky that we opened it in 90 at the beginning of the speculator kind of period, and so sales were really good, and we're fortunate that we didn't get killed when the speculator stuff went away, because we're geared to readers and collectors and the fun part of comics. So, and it's just been kind of steady growth and all been good. Knock on wood, but things have been real good.
Now, you said you opened up back in 1990. Now, we are one at many locations here in Houston, Texas, and you've had locations all over town.
Right.
What are the other locations, if you don't mind?
Well, we originally opened here at Westheimer and Hillcroft, and then we opened our second store on the north side of town. It's now at 1960 and Veterans Memorial, next to the Half Price Books up there. And then we opened a store in Clear Lake and Webster. It's at Bay Area Boulevard and Highway 3. And then we decided we wanted to be near downtown when things were hot on Washington, so we opened a store on Washington and Shepherd. And that store it's the smallest of our stores, but the staff over there is great. We get a lot of acclaim for that store. We do our book club and reading things and all that stuff there. So there's a big fan club for Chuck, the manager over there. And that store's good. Then we opened up in Sugarland in Missouri City, and then we just opened up within the last month. We opened up a store in Katy.
Oh, really?
At Fry Road and I-10. We just opened. So
sounds like each one of your locations has like a nice like family oriented experience with each other.
We find there are so many areas of Houston that need and deserve a good comic store. I mean, it's a big city. We're real lucky in that we've been able to expand in this city that I think is a hotbed of fandom There's a huge toy collector market here. There are a lot of vintage comic collectors. There are a lot of readers of comics. There are a lot of people that just think this stuff is fun. Yeah. And there's 7 million people here. And there are some other good comic stores besides Bedrock. I mean, Jen and Space Cadets on the north side of town. And, there are other good stores in town. But there's room for a lot of stores here because there's a lot of people that love this stuff. Right. And so we felt like there was a big need in Katy, and that's why we opened up out there. And, there are other parts of town that we plan to move into at some point, too. I just, still enjoy all this stuff, and I still think there's a need. So.
Now, I've often wondered, ever since I've seen you guys, I've often wondered this question: why the name Bedrock? I've always thought because the Flintstones.
It's the Flintstones. I loved the Flintstones when I was a kid. I loved watching them, and my big thing is collecting vintage comics. That's what I do. I collect, pre-1960 comic books.
You into like Archie and
Superman, Batman's, and my initial thing was I collected and put together a complete set of all the Marvel superhero comics pre-1950. So Marvel Comics, 1-Up, Captain America 1-Up, all of that stuff, and that was but just anything 10-cent cover price. There's from the things that you've heard of to stuff that you've not. You know what I mean? There's a whole ton of comic books. So being a fan of that when I was younger, and particularly when I was in high school and college, there was a place that I was aware of that sold a lot of vintage stuff called Sparkle City. Y'all haven't heard of them, but they advertised. They were just a vintage comic dealer. They sold it conventions and stuff, and they had a real interesting ad campaign where they did this stuff with sheep and their name, and so Sparkle City was City for Vintage Comics. I just thought the idea of that was cool, and I thought, if the Flintstones had a comic book store, what would it be? And so that's kind of where it came from, and we never really marketed the Flintstone stuff because it's with trademark stuff, it's hard to do. But that was the idea behind the name. It stuck. It just kind of worked.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Were you ever approached by any Hanna-Barbera, like, hey, Bedrock is a...
No, never. Like I said, we didn't. The first couple of years, I had a banner that I would hang up at stores, at shows when I set up at conventions that had Bedrock City kind of written out in stone. And then it had, the stone houses behind it and built like in the Flintstones. But we only did that for a couple of years. And then our logo, probably the first 3 or 4 years, was this kind of a takeoff on rock. But that was the closest it ever got. And it was,
Now, you said you have pre-stuff, pre-vintage. I have to ask, do you have do you collect Shadow, Doc Savage, Dick Tracy, pre-superhero stuff, or is it strictly DC?
I have some early Shadows.
Okay.
I don't have a lot of Doc Savage stuff. I don't have a lot of... Well, Rocketeer's never a comic. I mean, never a comic before the early 80s. I mean, Dave Stevens... Rocketeer was originally a comic book. Dave Stevens did it, but it was from the 1980s.
Oh, okay.
And there weren't a ton of comic appearances before they licensed it for a movie and did the movie. So more people know it for the movie, but those original comics, the original series, which came out 81 to 84, 85, something like that, the artwork in it is stunning.
Yes,
Dave Stevens
the Art
was
Deco
amazing.
stuff and everything.
Right.
Very beautiful.
You definitely get into that. But no, not to go back a little bit, but earlier you said that some of the comic shops you said didn't have the best experience, and I'm going to be honest, I've had some negative experiences in some of the comic book shops around.
Well, this was the thing that got me. So, having collected vintage comics, I knew a lot of the older collectors in Houston. There was a guy here in town. His name was Ken Ladd. He was an older collector. Everybody knew him, and he was part of the old HCCA, Houston Comic Collectors and stuff. He collected Captain Marvel and Wiz comics. He had pretty much a complete collection. And this would probably be 85 or 86, I was in college in Austin, but I had heard that Ken sold his collection to a store here in town, and I won't say which one, but it's and so I went, and TJ knows this. I've told him the story, but I came back to town to go look at the collection because there were 2 books that Ken had that I wanted. I wanted to buy them. And at that time, TJ's store was on Bissonnette, and when you walked in the front of his store, there was a foyer that was like 2 stories tall, and behind the counter, he had comics going up that wall. So the 2 books that I wanted are way up there, right? And he didn't know me. I mean, I'm just some snotty college kid walking in to buy these comics, but I said, "Can I see those 2 Captain Marvels up there?" And he goes, "Are you going to buy them?" And I said, "Well, I'd like to look at them. I plan to buy them, but I'd like to look at them first." "Well, if you're not going to buy them, I'm not going to take them down." "All right, if you're not going to take them down, I can't buy them." And I walked out. And it pissed me off.
Sour taste in your mouth. It
pissed me off. And years later, after we had opened, TJ and I were talking about partnering to do a store in the Woodlands. And we had 2 stores at that time. TJ had opened a second store, but he'd closed it. He had a store out on Long Point and Gessner, and he'd closed it. And I told him that story. I said, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't be in business. And he goes, he's like, I said, there's the deal. So, I mean, it's, it is. You see the public every day. You're here.
Have a relationship.
You have a place in this comics community, and it is a community. Everybody knows everybody, and everybody interacts, and everybody knows what's up. And you have to treat the people in this community kind of right, or it comes back. And there's no reason to go in a comic store and not have fun.
Right. That's really what I was also going to get into is how have you've taken that experience and you've been able to create a whole other type of environment. Like, you have a very unique environment here at Bedrock. How did you really come to curate that?
It's been steady growth over the years. Okay. My initial deal with one store was to have a place that reminded me of the shops that I loved, that I'd been in before, and to take that and make it as comfortable for everybody that came in as possible.
Right.
My goal was to have as much in the way of comic material as possible available to people all the time, and
to diversify.
Be professional about it. Make sure customer service was important, and run stores that way. Run comic shops like Nordstrom's is run.
Right.
I mean, Nordstrom's is known for customer service. Of course, and that's what comic. When I first opened stores, most of the people that opened comic stores were people that didn't want to get a job anywhere else. And so they treated their comic book stores kind of that way. This is my place, and I'm going to do whatever the hell I want. But you kind of can't run a business that way all the time.
Right.
And so we decided to try something a little different. And now it's become even more important to us with more stores to make sure that everything is unified between all the stores, that people are treated the same in all of them, that we have a consistent message. I mean, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I guess it's been longer than that because it was after we moved into this location in 2013 from across the street.
I was here for that.
And when we did that, we decided to actually create a position or hire someone in a position of being our director of marketing to unify the marketing between the stores. And now with social media, you have to make all that stuff consistent. And so Dylan is now our marketing director. He's been doing it for about 4 years, and he's amazing. He's amazingly good at it. And so that's been great to make the stores consistent and the message that we deliver consistent. And now, because of the pandemic, we were scrambling around trying to figure out how we were going to kind of generate some income while the stores were closed in March and April. And we started doing the Facebook Live thing, and that's kind of taken off.
Shout that out real quick. What is the Facebook Live?
Well, on Wednesday nights from 7 to 9 on Facebook, and you can link to them. In fact, it's going on
as we speak.
As we speak. But from 7 to 9 every Wednesday night, we have a Facebook Live sale. You can get to it through our Facebook page, and you just watch the feed. We put books up. You claim them. You can buy them. We'll ship them, or you can come in the store and pick them up. You can pay for them in any number of ways.
You ship out of the state as well?
We ship out of state. We ship out of the country. I mean, I've got a consistent customer in Malaysia that we send stuff to.
Wow.
We do a lot of international ship. But yeah, we have we also have a Facebook live sale community page. And we've got about, I guess, almost 1,000 people on that page. And so you can get in and talk about comics and stuff.
Yeah, like a forum of where you vintage toys and stuff.
Yeah.
Which is a great segue to the next question. What is your best seller? Do you sell more toys, comics, back catalog, figures, statues? What is the one thing that you see coming in?
These days, right now, kind of toys are the hot thing, but it's our primary business, obviously, is always going to be comics.
Of course.
And new comics every week are our biggest seller. That's our biggest category, is new comics. But toys just keep growing, and there's so many new toy lines that are cool. And we've also been kind of fortunate to pick up a lot of, we buy a lot of collections. People bring in collections of toys and stuff too. So, yeah, that's been kind of the fun stuff.
So that actually leads into yet another question: is how do you necessarily get your inventory? So people bring in stuff you guys buy, and then you have certain distributors.
It's kind of
as well?
two different things. So the way we look at it, we have retail merchandise that's new stuff that we're ordering from vendors, from distributors, from manufacturers, and so that's our our new product lines. But we also buy collections that come in the door at all the stores. So, and it's the same with like comics. We buy the new comics each week from the publishers. They ship them out and they come through our distributors. But we buy collections of comics too. And so, we have new comics and back issues, or new toys and vintage toys, or that kind of stuff. So.
Definitely has movies and TV shows affected your sales, like the CW shows, The Flash and everything, or the DCU, or of course Marvel, the Juggernaut. They
do, but it's more than just the fact that they affect sales on individual items. What they've done is, when I first started collecting, comics were such a niche thing, and it was almost like something you didn't tell everybody about,
Yeah.
And through the 80s and 90s, starting with the first Batman movie, that's gradually changed to where now this stuff is culture. And everybody is a part of it. So where we went from having a target market that was maybe 1 or 2% of the population, our target market now is almost 100% of the population.
Right.
Potentially anybody can come in a comic store. And I like to think that we have had some help in creating that by making the stores accessible where anybody can come in and feel comfortable. So it's all kind of tied into.
And going back to what you said, that's a very real thing. Like I said, I've been coming here since the early 2000s, late 90s, and you guys have been very welcoming. I don't know if you remember, but there used to be a vintage, one of the first of its kind, a vintage toy store here in Houston. It used to be located off of Montrose. It's called Dave's World. They sold.
I remember Dave was right across from my vet. I used to take my dog to the vet that was across the street from there. Yeah.
And that was the first of its kind. That was a store ahead of its time. That they sold vintage toys, a lot of stuff, in a market where back then people weren't really scrounging for it as they are now.
Yeah.
So I remember Dave's World is the first store that I went to where they have everything from the 80s and back, 90s and back. So I wanted to ask you, was there any? Did you notice anything back then, like, oh, these toys are going to be worth something someday, or this,
well, understand toys for me personally, toys were never my focus.
Okay.
but we had toys as part of our product mix since then, and I've certainly been aware of toys as part of the market. But to the extent that what Dave's World did, where he was buying he had no new toys. It was all vintage. He bought lots and lots of, he'd go and buy out storage units and just have parts and pieces and stuff. That is kind of a unique thing. And now more people are doing that. But if you notice, there aren't a lot of stores that do that because it's real labor intensive.
Yes.
And so to make it work, you have to, it's I don't want to say it's like a flea market kind of thing, but that's a better place to make that kind of thing happen that he did. But man, you could go dig around in there and find stuff just
I did.
Crazy stuff buried.
Half my stuff comes from that. I used to come from that store.
Yeah.
We want to give a quick shout out to our friend over at Super Happy Incredible Toys. He does as well vintage toys and vintage stuff like that, where he has Transformers and stuff. We have a video on that. You can check it out on our YouTube page.
He just bought some fixtures from us. He did. We were selling some at the Katie store, and he bought a couple of H-racks. So.
Nice.
With that being said, we're going to take a quick commercial break to give an awesome tour of this really cool store, this really awesome store, and all this merchandise. But we'll take a quick break. After these messages, we'll be right back.
Super excited. Thank you for that little tour. Chris?
So all this awesome stuff that you gave us a tour of, I really wanted to ask you, what is the Rosebud? What is your favorite? What is your first comic that you owned?
Well, the first comic I ever bought was Iron Man. I mean, the Iron Man number 46 and 47 of the spinner rack. But to me, the greatest comics that were ever made are like the first 60 issues of Fantastic Four. Those original Jack Kirby Fantastic Four issues were just the greatest comics ever made. So
with all this media going around, are you excited to see where they go with the Marvel movies and stuff?
They're doing a Fantastic Four movie, so I can't wait. I mean,
the old ones.
After all the terrible attempts at it, hopefully the MCU can take it and mix it in with the characters that they've already done, and
hopefully as well.
I've always wanted them to do a Fantastic Four movie that was kind of cosmic in scope, and with what they've done with Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, who would have thought Guardians of the Galaxy would be anything like it is? But to me, it's the best of all of them.
Yeah.
And so if they can do an FF movie on par with that would just. I mean, I'd be 9 years old again. I mean, it would be awesome. So,
I wanted to ask, with your website and how you built that, your website really stands out apart from like a lot of any other comic book shops websites that I've seen.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's easy to navigate. And how has that helped some of your sales? Because I saw that you have a way to like pre-order stuff.
Internet is funny. It's a hard world to crack for a small business. It just is. So we have high hopes for our website. We hope that it would be great sales, and we invested a fair chunk of money into it. And but it
shows.
It's great to have from a perception level as far as it certainly makes our business look better.
Gotcha.
But from the nuts and bolts of it, it doesn't necessarily generate the sales that you would think it does.
Really? Okay.
It's a useful tool for people that want to shop our stores. But a lot of times people kind of go on the website and then they come in the shops and buy stuff. We sell stuff off the website, but my hope had always been that we would have this busy website where we're selling
more off of that.
And it's never quite lived up to that, except for when we've had some kind of super exclusive kind of item. Like we did a Bedrock exclusive Funko Pop figure a few years back, the Kingdom Come Superman figure. And we sold a bunch of those through the website.
You guys were the only shop that had that?
That was us.
Oh,
it was us. It's a Bedrock City figure. Yeah. We've done some New Era hats where we did some designed hats that were Bedrock exclusive. The Bombshell Girl DC hats. There were some designs of those that were ours only. We did some exclusive cover comics, like a Terry Moore cover Grimm's Fairy Tale that was pretty cool. We actually have a cool Bedrock exclusive cover book coming up. If y'all are familiar with Lock and Key, they're doing a Lock and Key Sandman crossover series.
I feel like that's getting more popular.
And the first issue of that will have a Bedrock exclusive cover that will only be available here. Sweet. So we expect good things from that. That's going to be coming out. I think it was originally supposed to be January this month, but I think it's going to be pushed back to May.
I'm sorry, just off of that, do you guys get the designs done yourself? Or
what we do is we'll contact, like on the exclusive cover stuff, we contact the publisher and see what the parameters are that they require. Right. And usually it's, you have to buy the entire print run of that variant cover, which might be 1,000 or 2,000 or whatever they set that at. Okay. And then, like with the Lock and Key, we lined up the artist. We got the art that they did, and then got it approved by the publisher. So we basically handled everything in the middle, and and then they publish it. So,
you make it easy for them pretty much, and it allows them
but
to really
it's kind of cool because then we work out we get to keep the art from the artist. We pay for that.
Yeah,
we have to pay for it, but we get
we have to keep
so
the originals.
We've done a few exclusive covers, and we've got now this kind of little gallery of art covers that we've done, so that's kind of fun. So.
Y'all could open up like a little museum or something at some point.
Yeah, exactly.
While we were taking the tour, I had noticed a lot of stuff, a lot of really awesome stuff that you have here in this store. I definitely have to ask, what is the most craziest and valuable thing you've ever seen come through the stores in all your years of service?
Well, I mean, there's the most expensive thing that we ever sold. We didn't sell through the store, but I put a high grade Captain America 1 in auction and sold it for $280,000.
Wow!
It was a book that I had gotten probably in '95. Sold it about 2015. I paid $25,000 for it back then, and it had gone up that much. The craziest thing that ever walked in the store was a really high-grade copy of Detective 31, which is kind of the most famous Batman cover.
It was
high-graded? Yeah, it ended up being a 7.0 white pager, which in that book is real tough. Right. We ended up selling that book for 6 figures. So that was just a straight walk into the store. The guy couldn't believe that it was worth that much money, and he was real happy with the.
He didn't know what he had?
He knew that he had something good. He didn't know nearly the extent of the value. It's an interesting thing. We talk about it all the time because people bring stuff in all the time, and there are so many instances where people will bring something in that's worth a lot of money, and they have no idea, and so. If I wanted to, I can go, I'd give you $100 for that. And they would, $100, sure, I'll take it. But it's, like in this case, that book, I asked the guy, what are you planning on doing? And then he said, well, I'm going to probably grade it and put it in auction or something. And I said, what are you expecting to get for it?
Yeah.
And because he knew, he had bought it in 1980. 84, 85 from another store here in town. He paid $800 for it. He said he was expecting to get about $10,000 for it. And I said, I can get you 10 times that. And so he was he was super happy.
Right,
You know,
right.
I made as much in a commission as he was expecting to get on the book. You know?
Nice.
So yeah, that kind of stuff. But the absolute coolest thing, bar none, that we've ever gotten or had is, I have the original cover art, the earliest known Superman original cover art that exists. Action 1 was the first appearance of Superman.
Yeah.
He was on 5 covers early. So he was on the cover of Action 1.
Yeah.
They didn't realize Superman was going to be that popular, but by the time number 4 or 5 came out, they realized that he was the most popular character in the book. He's on the cover of 7, 10, 13, and 15. I have the cover of Action 15, which, like I said, it's the earliest existing cover. And it came up through a heritage auction about 10 years ago, and I just thought it was, as for what I enjoy with comics, historically speaking, it was about as significant an item as I had ever seen. Mm-hmm. And so we just went for it and won it in auction. I paid quite a bit for it, and but it's here. Anybody can come visit it that wants to. And we've had people that, come to Houston visiting town and go, hey, man, I came by, I want to see the Superman cover. So that's the coolest thing.
I'd like to go off the beaten trail for a little bit if I can. I would love to ask you, what do superheroes and comic books mean to you? Like, what sparks in you? They just brought so much joy to me when I was a kid. And did they ever inspire you, or like to be like, you know what, Superman's a great role model. I want to do that. I want to be that. Or the Batman, the brooding Batman from the Dark Knight from the 1980s, or like what?
I enjoyed reading them. I enjoyed the entertainment of them, and I am so happy that I was able to make that stuff turn into my living. I've never felt like I've worked a day in my life. I really enjoy what I do, still enjoy it. And comic books, superhero comics, funny animal comics, westerns, romance comics, all that stuff made that possible for me. Mm-hmm. So, what they mean to me, they're just the most fun thing ever to me. That's it in a nutshell. I'd never aspired to be a comic artist. I certainly, never aspired to be a superhero or anything.
Right.
I just, have always enjoyed the heck out of all that stuff. The art is beautiful to me. The packaging of them, the whole concept of comic books and the history of them and where they came from and how they've reflected American history and been a part of all of this stuff, from the 30s to now. And, it's just endlessly cool to me. That's it.
I think that's what I want to do with these shows, because we're doing the circuit around Houston. We're doing the circuit of store owners, comic book toy store owners, and I want to ask them, like, what is the inspiration? What drove you to, like, you know what? I love these characters so much that I want to open up a store and sell their merchandise. Mm-hmm. Or these characters mean so much to me that I totally would love to be a part of them somehow.
And honestly, these places deserve the shine,
right,
to be able to. Yeah,
well, I think every one of us that run stores will appreciate the exposure and the.
Of course,
and time, so.
You guys, like I said, you guys have been a part of my life ever since I was a kid. You guys gave me my first Dick Tracy comic, and from then on spawned what I have today. On our Instagram page, you can see all my collection. You can see what I have, and it was because when I was a kid, I would come into a Bedrock Comics across the street of a Westheimer, and I'll never forget. You guys would have the most friendliest atmosphere. You guys would also have the most cutting-edge things that I've never seen other stores have. Even to this day, you guys would have statues and figures that I've never seen. And I'm a traveler, so I like to go to other comic book stores and around America. To this day, nothing has wowed me for when I went into this store as a kid, and you guys have different statues and different things that I've never seen, even to this day.
I'm glad to be able to do it, Chris.
Definitely.
Y'all
And
get me emotional.
That makes it. I mean, that makes all this stuff worthwhile.
And the exposure that we hopefully, I mean, people know you guys like me for ever since I was a kid. So people have known you guys for a very long while.
Making me feel real old too.
Oh no.
No, I'm feeling the warmth right now.
It's kind of weird, but it doesn't seem that long ago. But we've been open now, going on 31 years. It's.
Is there going to be like a 35-year extravaganza?
I sure hope that there's no pandemic still going on, so we can do some big stuff. I mean, that's been the one thing this past year that's been tough, because so much of our existence is being with customers and being with comic fans and doing events and signings and
I mean, you guys are the forefront
kind of stuff, and we haven't been able to do any of that this year, and it's been really hard. No comic conventions. I haven't gone to a comic convention.
So I was about to ask is, what other type of events do you guys do? Like you do pop-ups as well?
Well, we don't do pop-ups so much, but like we were doing we were in the middle of a big thing where we were doing book fairs for junior highs and elementary schools, all through HISD, Fort Bend County. You guys giving back as well? Yeah, so we were doing these book things. We had them lined up. We had 40 weeks of stuff lined up doing book fairs in school, and all that got canceled. You can't do any of that anymore. Like I said, we do the graphic novel club at the Washington store, and get together. We haven't had a creator appearance. We've done signings with, Jim Lee and
really?
Yeah, we had Neil Adams and
Any Alex Ross?
All those guys. What's that?
Any Alex Ross?
Never had Alex Ross. I actually had a piece of Alex Ross art that I sold a few years ago.
Alex Ross. He'd fight you for it.
Alex Ross is my guy.
Yeah, he's amazing. He's a real nice guy, too.
Number 2 is Lee Bermejo. Number 2 is Lee Bermejo. I love Lee Bermejo.
We've had Lee Bermejo. I
have to come back. I could have to come back for that.
Plan on doing that again. So,
but
anyway, it's we haven't been able to do any of that. So.
I know that there's a huge Houston comic-based convention here in Houston. Comic Palooza. Were you guys ever a part of that?
Yeah, we set up at every one of them.
Because I know that it was privately owned.
Actually, we did not set up at the first one. The very first one was at West Oaks Mall. And it was Midnight Comics, John Simon.
Okay.
That started that and ran it. Now the city of Houston owns it.
Yeah.
And it's certainly the best, biggest comic show in Houston.
Yeah.
You guys are definitely the forefront comic book store in Houston. I mean, you have several locations also. You've been around, I think, the longest, but there's another debatable person out there who believes...
No, Third Planet's been here longer.
Okay, they've been here longer.
Yeah, TJ's been around a long time.
Tiptoe around that.
Yeah, no, he opened... I know that he had Third Planet starting in the late 70s. I don't know exactly the year that he opened, and he had a little store before he was Third Planet, but he bought... merged with a store called Luby's over near Roy's way back in the
no relation.
70s.
Luby's no relation.
No, it was a record store. It was a record store on Kirby. The first comic book store in town was Roy's Memory Shop. It opened in 1970. And actually, Roy Benario is still alive. He had been selling comics out of a record store called Harmony Hut starting in '67.
I would have loved that.
Yeah, so that was the beginnings of comic fandom in Houston. The first Houston Con was 66 and 67.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So assuming COVID kind of goes away here pretty soon, hopefully, what are your future plans? You guys have anything else coming up? I know you said that you have another
we just
store
opened the
Katy.
store. We're like I said, we're hoping to start doing conventions again soon and traveling whenever this kind of mellows out and doing whatever events we can in the shop. I'm sure that...
I know y'all would have little tournaments here every once in a while. Video game tournaments you would have here. I was actually involved in one of them. But yeah, winding things down, do you have any merchandise or do you have store merch or where can we find all that stuff?
What do you mean?
Like shirts, apparel.
Where can we follow you?
Bedrock stuff? Well, all the Bedrock shirts are right up there. We'll check those out.
Who designs those? I'm sorry.
What's that?
Who designs them?
We do.
Nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
we come up with different things. Some of them are goofy, and some of them are inside jokes, and some of them. I'm planning to do one. I'll show you a logo, but my wife is Vietnamese. We travel. Last year before last, we went to Thailand for a while, and I think the calligraphy of the Thai language is unbelievably cool. It's just fine, and so I want to do a Bedrock T-shirt all in Thai.
Oh, that's cool.
And with all where you can't even tell. So we've done a logo in Thai that we're gonna
release.
It's gonna be kind of neat. So something different to do.
Russell, any last questions before the
10
questionnaire?
I did want to ask as well, do you guys see yourself branching out of Houston at any point?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
That's the main thing.
World domination.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, before we wrap up, we'd like to introduce a 10-question questionnaire that is going to be hopefully a staple for us.
Speed round.
A speed round, yes. Hopefully a staple for us here at Comic Cave Podcast, where we ask all of our store owners and also our special guests and artists that we will have in the future. But question number 1, Russell, would you like to...
I'm starting this one off.
All right. Yes, you were starting off.
Who is your favorite hero?
Who's my favorite hero? Probably Batman.
Classic.
Number 2, who is your favorite villain?
Dr. Doom.
Nice.
Ooh, you got a companion there. Crap. I'm sorry, that just went away. What hero would you want to save you?
What hero would I want to save?
If you're in dire danger, who do you want to come to your rescue?
Just one of the pretty ones. Just pick one.
Which leads us to our next question. Who would you not want to save you?
Oh, golly. I don't know. If I needed saving, I don't know that I'd be too picky. So I don't know that just save me.
Yeah.
You sure? Even Booster Gold?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
Yeah,
what comic book character would you be in a relationship with?
Wow. That's a good question. I don't know. Maybe somebody like Catwoman or something. It'd just be interesting and different.
I think we've covered this earlier, but I'll ask you to be more clarified. What got you into comics?
That's a long story, but seeing a spinner rack for the very first time. I mean, I'd walked by it a million times before there was a spinner rack at the U-Totem. Went there to, and one day there it was, and that was it. I mean, that's awesome. What got me into comics.
All right, what about the comic culture do you dislike?
Some of the cliquishness, some of the cliquishness of it.
No, yeah, definitely. I agree with that wholeheartedly, especially nostalgia can be very toxic. What is the one thing that you want in your collection, your private collection?
God, what is my Grail book now? I literally have had pretty much every comic book that I've ever wanted.
Wow.
But, there are, what would be, my thing right now is there's some pieces of original art that I'd like to get by some different artists. I would love a Frazetta comic cover.
You've stepped up your game. You thinking outside.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've the only two big books that I have never owned an Action 1 or a Detective 27. Literally every other big book we've owned. I've had Marvel ones, I've had Batman ones and Superman ones and all of that stuff. And they're all cool. The comics that I really dig right now are some of the weird esoteric things. I mean, if I could find some issues of, there's some funny animal books that have artists that were big in the animation stuff during the World War II, the 50s, that kind of stuff. And there are some of those books that I would love to find because they're just so rare and esoteric. Titles like Ha Ha and Giggle, and there's a couple of issues of a title called Jingle Jangle that I want to get because it's got these characters in it. So I mean, it's just weird, odd stuff like that. But mainly it'd be pieces of art, I think, right now.
So if you weren't in the business of selling comics and happiness to people, what other occupation would you pursue?
I'd be a poker player.
Wow. I don't want to get.
I kind of want to do that now. So.
And lastly, what era of comics would you love to live in?
I mean, to me, there's no time like the present, as weird as it is. To me, from a comic era, probably the 1950s, or I would love to have been around when, and to be able to appreciate when Marvel Comics first started coming out. So sometime in there from like, say, 53 to 63, that kind of time, the 10 years before I was born, I guess, so.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here in Comic Cave Podcast. Thank you so much, Richard, for having us here.
Thank you for having me. I mean, it's awesome.
Where can they follow you at?
I don't just bedrockcity.com for the webpage. Cool. Go to Facebook and get on the Bedrock City page and the live sale deal. I post a lot in the live sale community page, gotcha. And then we have a Twitter following and stuff. I'm not real active in it. I'm still old.
But
school,
all the main
Facebook,
social media handles, they can find you and stuff.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, but you also mentioned earlier that there was a podcast. Some of the crew does.
Some of the crew does the Uncanny Universe podcast.
Okay.
And absolutely check it out. Ronald and Mike and
Crossover.
So yeah, they're wonderful. They've been doing that now for 5 or 6 years. So
awesome.
It's been rocking along. So.
Do y'all ever do any giveaways?
Yeah, all the time. All the time, and you can find out about all of that stuff through there. And sign up for our newsletter. We do a weekly newsletter. If you don't mind getting your inbox and your email filled with, it's once a week, info. But every promotion and everything that we do, we do through the news.
I mean, that's one thing I like about you guys. Y'all have y'all's own subscription boxes here where you can come in and you can have a subscription box and all the comics that you want, they'll put them in there and they'll save them for you and everything.
Set them for you. You come pick them up whenever it's convenient for you.
Right. Well, we have our little giveaway of our own. Russell, would you like to kick us off for that?
No kissing.
No kissing off. If you guys give us a like, follow, subscribe, and a comment down below on any of the videos where we are doing this giveaway. Once we reach 150 subscribers, we are giving away. Tell them what it is, Chris.
This DC Comics designer series, Libermejo.
Up here,
there it is.
Libermejo, DC Comics designer, 150 subscribers. Please leave a comment and a like, and also just go subscribe on our Instagram and everything, and you can have the chance to win this awesome thing, Libermejo. I mean, he's beautiful.
The more likes and comments that you guys put on all of the pages, the higher chance you have of winning, because it is picked entirely.
We have some fans out there, but we need more fans. 150 subscribers, please. But that'll do it for us here at Comic Cave Podcast. My name is Chris, here with my hetero life mate, Mr.
Russ,
joined by our special guest, Richard. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace. All right, you ready? So we stopped here at the Bedrock City Comics booth here at Comic Palooza 2021. Mr. Richard, the owner of Bedrock City Comics. Sir, it's been a while since we've done an interview with you, and we know that
waited till the end of the show. Look, stuff's already gotten taken down.
sold.
So be it. I mean, you can still find it at Bedrock City Comics. 5 locations?
Absolutely.
6 locations at Bedrock City Comics. And if you can, tell the people, so what you been doing here at Bedrock City Comics?
Selling comics.
Selling comics, any toys, pops. What's your best seller for this weekend?
I mean, we got all that stuff. We sold a lot of T-shirts. We sold a lot of pop figures. And then we sold Avengers #1, so it was all good.
Oh, really? Wow. Avengers #1. I see that you have that Galactus back there.
That's
first appearance of the Galactus and also Iron Man. Man, what does that go for?
$4,500.
So can we make a deal? Can we cut a deal here? I'll give you $2. That's the best I can do. $2. Come on. Okay.
Do you want to hold it? You mean just to hold it?
I will hold it.
Take that if
I
you
will
want to
hold
it.
But thank you so much, Richard, for joining us here at Comic Palooza 2021. We'll have that interview out soon, sir, right?
Can't wait.
Cameraman, thank you so much, sir.
Thanks.